Well, everybody talks about, you know, the two rules in show business: don't work with kids, don't work with animals. And this kind of gives you an in into, you know, working with that the spontaneity or that kind of raw creativity that kids have without actually having to deal with any kids.
Suddenly, she thought of the zoo. The zoo is where the elephant belongs. So she quickly called up the zoo. But the man there said,
I'm sorry, lady, we haven't heard of any escaped elephant. Right, Charlie? Why don't you try the other zoo?
And sometimes, you know, those leaps in logic or those leaps in maturity that show up in stories fit in, and sometimes they just seem awkwardly out of place.
Time went by. Chipulu had 4 cubs. There were 2 boys, two were boys and 2 were girls. The girls were called Jackie and Ronnie. The boys were called Mark and Mike. Ronnie and Jackie liked to pick flowers. Mark and Mike liked to bug their sisters. The family was happy together.
But there's so much of ourselves that we bury, we forget about. We try and become these serious people or these pragmatic people, and then we discover these little gems in there that we had no idea about.
I guess I don't see it as a challenge. I see it as a sort of a joy, a little bit of a joy project, because I think it offers the opportunity to laugh with the writer, not at the writer, absolutely with the writer. All of us went to the park. The boys were still there. Mr. Norm looked in the bag.
Whoa!
There he saw bottles of drugs.
Ooh, drugs!
But if they see it actually up on stage, delivered by 3 people who have no necessary emotional attachment to that story, they didn't write it themselves, we may see it in a completely different light than they would have seen it. My mom, Jill, works at Jill's Diner. We live in an apartment in Montreal.
I would say that's more than working at Jill's Diner.
My mom, Jill, yeah, she owns it. She's taken her mom down a couple of notches. And you get the audience member, who's also the writer, the author, to go, wow, I never thought about it that way. And maybe they come out of that experience with something new themselves, about themselves. I think it's neat.
Of course, you can only take somebody's past experiences or writings, you know, so far. People, you know, grow up and change a lot, but you always kind of look and you always kind of recognize that little nugget of, oh, I see exactly where that personality trait originated and how it's now blossomed into, you know, who this person really is 20 years later or whatever.
One day my friend Jill told me to see her secret cave that she found. I was very curious, so I went with her. When we got there, she pushed me in.
You go in first,
she said. I thought to myself, why me? I went in and saw a skeleton right there in front of me.
When reading the work that somebody else did as a kid, you're kind of also celebrating that fun and innocence that you once had, even though some people have buried it deep, deep down. It's still there, and I think everybody is able to connect with that on some level.
It might be more engaging watching it as a live audience member, but visually it won't be as engaging if you're watching it on the web afterwards, so maybe that's something to think about as well.
We don't talk to each other on the bus anymore because we're plugged in with your earphones and we're twittering. We lock ourselves into these electronic worlds where we are connected, but we're not connected with each other side by side. This project is a way to help, in a way, bridge those 2 gaps, those 2 worlds in myself, to try and figure out, okay, my love of technology and my love of people-to-people contact, how can they get married with this project?
If you're giving your story to have this done, you've already taken the step, so you're obviously not, the person is obviously not in a space where they're scared to have this animated for them on stage or put up on stage for them. What I think it offers is the opportunity to laugh at yourself and take great joy in something it is that you did so long ago and see it as you would never have seen it in anybody's lifetime acted out as an adult. I mean, it's a really innovative idea, and I think it should be embraced. I think people will come into this and come out with a really great experience.
It's cool. It's really fun to do, and you can't help but have a smile on your face when you read some of the stuff that you know has been written by these innocent young minds. It's fantastic. There's nothing else like it. You definitely can't fake anything like this.
When you're a kid, you didn't realize you couldn't do it. So you did. As adults, we kind of start to think, well, I can't do it, so then we don't. So when you go back and you look at this stuff, you kind of realize, right, that's when I didn't realize there wasn't any reason not to. I can just open the door and get onto the spaceship and rescue myself because I can. There's nothing to say I can't.
Don't do it. It'll be very, very scary. You'll hate the experience.